The night was quiet on the edge of the alien settlement. The human worker, Daniel, was just finishing his long shift. His hands were rough from carrying crates, his clothes covered in dust. He wanted nothing more than a simple meal and some rest, but then it happened. From behind the shadows of a broken wall, a voice called softly. It was shaky, almost broken, and it carried strange words. "Human, can you do this to me from behind? I'll be your slave for life." Daniel froze where he stood. His heart jumped in his chest. At first he thought he had misheard, but when he turned his head, he saw her, a girl, not human, step slowly into the pale light. She was small for her kind, her skin pale blue, her eyes large and glowing with fear. Her clothes were torn, her arms covered with faint bruises. She looked too weak to stand, yet her gaze locked onto him with a strength that shocked him. Everyone in the street stopped, workers carrying boxes, traders arguing over prices, even guards leaning on their spears. They all turned and stared. Whispers ran through the air like fire. Some laughed, some looked disgusted, others shook their heads. Daniel's throat went dry. He knew alien girls sometimes said strange things under command, but this felt different. Her voice was desperate, not teasing, not playful. It was not a game. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Why did you say that?" Her lips trembled. She hugged herself tightly. Her eyes darted around as if the shadows were listening. Then she leaned close enough for only him to hear. "They made me say it. It is the curse. They put words inside me. I cannot stop. Only you can break it." A chill ran down Daniel's spine. He had heard rumors of such things. Alien lords who carved commands into their slaves, commands that forced them to speak and act against their will, but he had never seen one so close, never heard a knee begging like this. The guards at the corner shifted. Their eyes were on him now. One even touched the hilt of his weapon. Daniel felt the girl's small hand grip his arm. Her fingers were cold and shaking. She whispered again, "Please, come with me, just for a moment. Behind this wall, I'll explain." His mind raced. If he followed her, the crowd would talk. The guards might follow. The slave masters might hear. Yet if he ignored her, he knew she would not survive the night. He looked at her face again, and something inside him shifted. It wasn't just her beauty. It was the broken strength in her eyes, the silent plea that no one else wanted to hear. "All right," Daniel whispered, almost against his own will. "Show me." Gasps rose from the crowd. People muttered. Some mocked him, calling him foolish. Others whispered that the human was cursed now, but Daniel didn't care. He stepped into the shadows with her. His heart pounded. The girl moved quickly, pulling him behind the broken wall where the dim light of the street could not reach. There, hidden from the others, she turned her back to him. Slowly, with trembling hands, she pulled at the fabric of her torn dress. Her voice cracked. "Look, this is why I said those words. This is why I need you." Daniel's eyes widened as the truth came into view. Carved deep into the skin of her back were glowing marks, ancient symbols that pulsed with a sick light. They twisted and burned as if alive, and each line seemed to whisper with cruel command. The girl shivered, her voice breaking. "They said only a human can break it, only one who dares to touch it from behind. If you walk away, I will belong to them forever." Daniel's breath caught. He had never felt fear like this, yet he had also never felt such anger. In that moment, he knew this was no accident. This was fate pulling him into something greater and behind too. Hem, in the distance, the sound of boots echoed on stone. The guards were coming closer. Daniel's heart raced as the alien girl trembled before him. The glowing marks on her back pulsed like living fire. Each symbol seemed alive, whispering in a language older than time. He wanted to look away, but something about it held him still. "Who did this to you?" Daniel asked, his voice low. The girl wrapped her arms around herself as if ashamed. "The masters," she whispered. "They call it the binding curse. They write commands into our skin. We cannot disobey. We cannot stay silent. When they command us to speak, we speak. When they command us to kneel, we kneel." Daniel clenched his fists. His anger boiled, but he forced his voice calm. "And why me? Why do you think a human can break it?" She looked up, her wide eyes shining like glass in the dark. "Because that is how they wrote it. They feared humans. They feared your touch. They feared the bond between your kind and ours. So they made the curse weak only when a human defies it." She hesitated, her voice breaking. "If you do nothing, I will never be free. I will remain their slave until death. The sound of boots grew louder outside. Daniel's instincts screamed to leave, to run, but the girl's hand gripped his sleeve tightly. She was shaking so badly he thought she might fall. Please, she begged. Just for tonight, hide me. If they see me with you, they will know the curse is already weakening. They will try to chain you too. Daniel hesitated. His life had been simple until now. Work, eat, sleep, survive. He had no desire to fight alien lords, no dream of becoming a hero. But here she was, one broken girl with eyes full of silent fire, and she had chosen him. The guards' voices came closer. One laughed cruelly. The cursed one ran this way. Another voice answered, "If the human is with her, we'll take him too. The masters will reward us." Daniel's chest tightened. He looked at the girl. She was so small, so fragile, and yet so stubborn in her fear. He made his choice. "Come on," he whispered. He grabbed her hand and pulled her deeper into the tunnels. They moved quickly, footsteps echoing against the walls. The smell of damp stone filled the air. The girl stumbled but did not let go of his hand. She kept glancing over her shoulder, as if the glowing marks were burning hotter. Daniel saw her wince. She bit her lip hard to keep from crying out. "What's happening to you?" he asked. "The curse," she whispered. "The longer I resist, the more it burns me. They will feel it. They will know I disobeyed. They will come." Daniel stopped suddenly. He turned and faced her. "Listen to me. I don't know how yet, but I won't let them take you back. Not tonight, not ever." Her breath caught. Her eyes widened. She had never heard words like that before. Not from any creature, not from any master. For a moment, hope flickered in her gaze. Fragile, but alive. Behind them, the shouts of guards echoed. Closer now, Daniel pulled her into a side passage. They ducked behind broken machinery. The girl pressed against him, her heartbeat fast against his arm. The guards stormed past, their lights flashing. Their voices grew faint as they moved further down the tunnel. For a brief moment, silence returned. Daniel's lungs burned as he tried to steady his breath. He looked down at her. She was pale, but alive. "Why risk everything for me?" she whispered, almost too soft to hear. Daniel thought for a moment. His answer was simple. "Because no one else will." Her lips parted, trembling. Her eyes shimmered with tears she didn't want to show. She lowered her head, whispering, "Then, maybe you are the one they feared." The tunnel grew colder. The girl's glowing marks dimmed slightly. But Daniel knew this was only the beginning. Outside, the masters were still searching, and they would not stop. In the shadows, one truth became clear. He had stepped into a fight far bigger than himself, and there was no going back. The tunnels grew darker as Daniel and the alien girl moved deeper. The air was damp, filled with the smell of rust and mold. Her weak steps slowed, but she still clung to his hand, as if letting go meant death. At last they reached a narrow opening. Behind it was a chamber glowing with strange blue light. Daniel paused, but the girl whispered, "This is where it begins. This is the hidden market." He stepped inside and his breath caught. The chamber was not empty. Dozens of aliens stood there, their bodies wrapped in cloaks, their faces shadowed. The room smelled of smoke and old blood. On the stone floor, cages lined the walls. Inside them were alien girls and boys of different kinds, all scarred, all broken, all silent. A tall alien with gray skin and sharp teeth greeted them. His voice was smooth but cold. "Ah, the cursed one has returned, and with her, a human." His eyes glowed with interest. How rare, how very rare. The girl shivered and lowered her head. Daniel tightened his fists. His instincts screamed that this was no place for him, but the tall alien stepped closer, smiling. "You don't understand, human," the creature said softly. "She is not free. She is a prize. Her curse was carved by my masters. You cannot undo it. You can only claim it. If you touch her as commanded, she will be yours forever, body and soul." Daniel's stomach turned. He glanced at the girl. Her eyes begged him not to believe. Her lips trembled. "Don't listen. They want to trick you. They want me bound forever." The gray alien tilted his head. "And what if she lies? What if she desires to be yours? What if this is her true wish?" The other cloaked figures began to murmur. Their voices echoed. "Take her. Take her now. Show us if you are brave. Bind her. Claim her." Daniel felt the weight of every gaze on him. His skin crawled. It wasn't just a market. It was a theater. They wanted a show. They wanted him to become part of their cruel game. The girl suddenly fell to her knees, clutching her glowing back. Her voice cracked with pain. "Please, Daniel, don't let them make you do it. If you follow their rules, I am theirs forever. If you refuse, maybe, just maybe, I can be free." The gray alien leaned down, whispering, "If you deny her, she will burn. She will suffer until her skin turns to ash. Is that what you want, human?" Her screams echoing in your ears? Daniel's mind spun. His heart pounded. He wanted to tear apart every chain in the room, but he had no weapon, no plan, just his hands. And the girl clinging to him. He pulled her up gently, ignoring the mocking laughter of the crowd. His voice was steady, even though his chest shook. "I won't play your game." The chamber grew quiet, the cloaked figures stilled, the gray alien's grin faded, his voice lowered to a hiss. "Then you have chosen war, human, and war you shall have." The crowd began to scatter, shadows moved along the walls, whispers of violence filled the air. The girl pressed against Daniel's side, her small fingers digging into his arm. "They won't let us leave," she whispered, her voice tight with fear. "If we escape, they'll hunt us. If we stay, they'll chain us." Daniel scanned the chamber. His eyes landed on a side tunnel, half hidden behind the cages. He leaned close to her ear, whispering, "Run when I say, don't stop, don't look back." The girl nodded, though her body shook. The gray alien raised his hand and the chains on the walls began to glow with the same cursed light as the marks on her back. The cages rattled. The enslaved aliens inside cried out in fear. Daniel stepped forward, his jaw tight. "You think humans are weak. You think we bend. But I promise you, if you try to take her again, I will break your curse with my own hands." The market roared with anger. The gray alien's eyes narrowed, his teeth bared, but before he could command the chains, Daniel shouted, "Now!" He grabbed the girl and sprinted toward the hidden tunnel. The crowd lunged, chains flew like whips, and the chamber shook with fury. But the human and the cursed girl disappeared into the shadows, leaving behind chaos. The tunnel was narrow and damp. Daniel's boots splashed through shallow water as he pulled the girl along. Behind them, angry voices echoed, but the deeper they went, the fainter the shouts became. At last, they stumbled into an abandoned chamber, broken machinery scattered across the floor. The girl collapsed against the wall, her chest heaving. Her glowing marks dimmed slightly, though they still pulsed with faint fire. Daniel knelt beside her, his breath heavy. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head weakly, though her trembling body said otherwise. "Not hurt, only burning inside. The curse grows angry when I resist." Daniel studied her. His heart tightened at the sight of her frail body. She was young, yet her eyes carried years of pain, scars hidden deeper than her skin. He wanted to say something to comfort her, but no words felt enough. The girl's gaze lifted to him, her lips parted as if to speak, but instead she lowered herself to her knees, bowing her head. "You saved me. You risked yourself. Now I belong to you." Daniel reached quickly and pulled her up. "No, don't kneel to me." She looked at him with confusion, her voice cracked. "But that is what I am, a slave, a thing to serve. Isn't that why you helped me?" Daniel shook his head firmly, his voice low but sharp. "No one owns you, not me, not them. You're not a thing." Her eyes widened, shimmering with something she could not name. For a moment, silence filled the chamber, heavy but gentle. A bond unseen seemed to form, not of chains, but of choice. The girl lowered her gaze, whispering, "Then what am I to you?" Daniel hesitated, his heart beat faster. He didn't have an answer, not yet. All he knew was that leaving her was no longer possible. "You're someone worth protecting," he said at last. Tears welled in her eyes. She turned away quickly, hiding her face. Her voice trembled. "No one has ever said that to me." The chamber was silent again. Only the faint dripping of water filled the space. Daniel leaned against the wall, his mind racing. He had stepped into something bigger than himself, and he could feel the weight of it pressing on his shoulders. Yet when he looked at her, he felt a strange strength rise within him. Outside, faint footsteps echoed through the tunnels. The hunters had not given up. Daniel tensed, listening. He motioned for the girl to stay quiet. Together they waited, breathless, as shadows moved across the entrance. The voices passed, fading into the distance. The girl let out a shaky sigh. She whispered, "They will never stop. You know that, don't you?" Daniel nodded slowly. "I know, but they'll have to go through me first." Her lips parted, and for the first time a small smile touched her face. It was faint, fragile, but real. Her voice was soft. "You are different from them, from everyone. Maybe that is why the curse fears you." Daniel didn't reply, but the thought stayed with him. The girl shifted closer, as if seeking warmth. Her head rested lightly against his arm. He froze for a moment, then relaxed, letting her stay. She was trembling, but her breathing slowly steadied. For a brief moment, the chaos outside felt far away. In the silence of the chamber, there was only the sound of her heart against his side and the faint glow of her marks. Daniel closed his eyes, his mind heavy but calm. The girl whispered one last sentence before sleep claimed her. "If you keep me safe tonight, I will never leave you." And in the darkness, Daniel realized that this night had changed everything. The bond between them was no longer of curse or chains, but of choice and trust, silent but powerful. Yet even in that fragile peace, the echo of footsteps returned, louder this time. The hunters had found their trail again. The night was not silent for long. The sound of boots and heavy breathing echoed down the tunnels. Daniel's eyes snapped open. He had only closed them for a short moment, but now danger was close again. The alien girl stirred, her body tense. She whispered, "They found us." Her glowing marks began to burn brighter, as if the curse itself was warning her. Daniel rose quickly, pulling her to her feet. His heart pounded. He had no weapon, no plan, only the will to fight if he must. The girl clung to his arm, her body shaking. From the darkness ahead, figures appeared, tall and armored. Their eyes gleamed under the faint light of their helmets. Hunters hired by the masters. The leader stepped forward, his voice low and cruel. "Human, hand her over. She is property, not yours. She is bound by command. If you resist, both of you will suffer." Daniel stood firm. "She is not property. She's free." The hunters laughed, their voices cold. "Free? Nothing carved with chains is free, human. You have no idea what you are dealing with." The girl's grip on Daniel's sleeve tightened. Her voice shook as she whispered, "They can feel the curse weakening. That's why they want me back now. If they chain me again, I will never escape." Daniel looked at her, then back at the hunters. His voice was steady. "You'll have to go through me first." The leader snarled, signaling his men. In a breath, the tunnel filled with movement. Chains of glowing metal snapped through the air like whips. The hunters moved fast, too fast for normal eyes. Daniel pushed the girl behind him, dodging as a chain struck the wall beside him. Sparks lit the darkness. The girl screamed, covering her ears as the curse inside her pulsed with pain. Daniel grabbed a broken metal pipe from the ground. It was heavy and rusted, but it was all he had. He swung it hard, striking one chain away. The clang echoed, but the hunters only laughed. "You fight with trash, human," the leader mocked. "You think you can win against us?" Daniel's chest heaved, sweat running down his face. He didn't know if he could win, but he knew one thing. He would not surrender her. The girl pressed against the wall, her eyes wide. She whispered a prayer in her own tongue, glowing tears sliding down her cheeks. Her body shook as if the curse itself fought against her will. The hunters surrounded Daniel, their chains circling like snakes. He stood his ground, swinging, blocking, each strike rattling his arms. The pipe bent, but he refused to let it go. Then suddenly, one chain struck across his arm. Fire burned his skin. He cried out but did not fall. His grip held tight, his eyes blazed with fury. The girl gasped, seeing the wound. She tried to step forward, but the curse burned her back violently, forcing her to stay. She fell to her knees, sobbing. "Daniel, stop, they will kill you." Daniel roared back, "Then they'll have to earn it." His voice echoed through the tunnel, strong, unshaken. For a brief second, even the hunters hesitated. The leader sneered, lifting his chain high. "Then die with her." But before the chain could strike, the ground trembled, the tunnel ceiling cracked, stones rained down, the hunters stumbled. Daniel grabbed the girl, pulling her away from the collapsing chamber. They ran down another passage, dust and smoke clouding the air. The girl's small hand clutched his tightly. Behind them, the hunters shouted, their voices full of rage. "Run, human, run while you can. We will find you, and when we do, there will be no escape." Daniel didn't look back. His chest burned, his arm ached, but his will was iron. The girl's eyes glowed with fear and hope all at once. She whispered, "You fight for me, even when it costs you pain. Why?" Daniel looked at her, his voice low. "'Cause you're worth it." Her breath caught. Her tears fell silently, and in her heart, a bond stronger than chains began to form. But the echoes of the hunters still followed, and Daniel knew this fight had only begun. The tunnel stretched endlessly. Daniel's arm burned where the chain had struck him, but he kept running. His grip on the alien girl's hand was firm, refusing to let go. Behind them, the hunters' voices faded, but both knew it was not over. At last they stopped in a hidden alcove, dim light dripping from cracks above. Daniel leaned against the wall, his chest heaving. The girl sank down beside him, her glowing marks flickering like dying fire. He looked at her carefully. "You have to tell me everything. I can't protect you if I don't understand." The girl hesitated, her lips trembling. She turned her face away, shame covering her features. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then finally her voice came, quiet and broken. "My name is Lyra," she whispered, "and I was not always a slave." Daniel's brows furrowed. He leaned closer, listening. "I was born in a noble house," she continued, her eyes distant. "My family had power, respect. But one night the masters came. They said my family had betrayed them. They killed my father before my eyes. They chained my mother, and me." Her voice cracked. Her hand touched her back. "They carved the curse into my skin." Daniel's stomach twisted, his jaw clenched, but he stayed silent so she could continue. Lyra's tears fell silently, glowing faintly in the dark. "The curse is not just words. It eats at the soul. It forces me to obey. Even when I resist, the pain burns through my body, and the command I carry is the cruelest." Daniel's chest tightened. "What command?" She lowered her head, her voice shaking. "To beg, to kneel, to offer myself to whoever stands behind me. It is humiliation carved into my flesh, to make me worthless in my own eyes." Daniel's fists clenched so hard his knuckles went white. His anger burned hotter than the pain in his arm, but he forced his voice calm. "And they made you say that to me when you first spoke?" She nodded slowly, shame filling her eyes. "Yes, but I didn't mean it, not in my heart. I only wanted help. But the curse twisted my words, made them sound like I was begging for chains." Daniel exhaled sharply, his anger turned into something deeper, resolve. He reached out gently, lifting her chin so she had to look at him. Her eyes shone with pain and shame. "Listen to me," he said firmly. "You are not worthless. You are not what they made you. You are more than their curse." Her lips trembled. A small sob escaped. She pressed her forehead against his chest, whispering, "Why do you say that? Why do you care? You don't even know me." Daniel held her carefully. "Because no one deserves what they did to you. Because I won't stand by while they try to break you." Her arms wrapped weakly around him, for the first time clinging not in fear, but in fragile trust. She whispered through tears, "If you stay with me, they will hurt you too. The curse can spread. It can mark anyone who dares to defy it. You might become chained like me." Daniel pulled back slightly, his voice steady. "Then let it try. I'd rather carry your burden with you than watch you face it alone." Her eyes widened, shimmering with new tears, but this time there was a spark of hope in them. No one has ever said that to me before." Before Daniel could reply, a loud crash echoed down the tunnel. The hunters were close again. Lyra flinched, clutching his arm, her voice broke. "They won't stop until I am theirs again." Daniel stood tall, gripping the broken pipe he still carried. His arm burned, his body ached, but his spirit was unbroken. He looked at her and said, "Then we make our stand, together." Lyra's marks flickered, weaker now, but her eyes burned stronger. For the first time, she didn't see herself as a slave, but as someone the fighting for. And in the shadows, the sound of chains grew louder. The hunters were coming, and the fight for her freedom was far from over. The tunnels ended in a cracked opening that led into a narrow alley above. Daniel pushed the broken grate aside and climbed out first, pulling Lyra up after him. The night air was cold, the streets empty. Only the faint glow of alien lamps lit the stone walls. For a moment, there was silence. Daniel thought they had escaped, but then the clatter of chains echoed behind them. The hunters had followed. Lyra gasped, clutching his sleeve. "They're here!" Daniel gripped the bent pipe tighter. His arm ached from the earlier strike, but he refused to drop it. He turned, placing himself between Lyra and the shadows. From the alley's mouth, 3 hunters stepped out. Their armor gleamed under the dim light, their chains glowing like living snakes. Behind them, more shadows shifted, watching, waiting. The leader sneered. "Cornered, human. You've run far enough, hand her over, and perhaps we'll let you crawl away with your life." Daniel stood firm. "You'll have to kill me first." The hunters laughed, the sound cruel and hollow. "So be it," the leader hissed. He cracked his glowing chain against the stone ground, sparks flying. The fight began in an instant. One hunter's chain lashed toward Daniel. He swung his pipe hard. The clash rang out like thunder. His arms shook from the force, but he pushed back. His eyes blazed with fury. Lyra pressed herself against the wall, trembling. She wanted to scream, to run, but her marks flared painfully, forcing her to her knees. Her voice cracked. "Daniel, don't let them take me, please." Daniel growled through gritted teeth. "They won't." The second hunter lunged, chain whipping through the air. Daniel ducked, rolling aside. The chain smashed into the wall, shattering stone. Dust filled the alley. Daniel swung his pipe upward, striking the hunter's jaw. The alien staggered, but his armor absorbed most of the blow. He snarled, "Sway!" Inching back. The pipe bent further, nearly snapping. The leader advanced, his chain glowing brighter. "You fight like a fool, human. You can't win. The curse itself will take her back." Daniel spat blood, his voice low but sharp. "Then I'll break the curse too." The leader roared and struck. His chain shot forward like lightning. Daniel tried to block, but the force threw him against the wall. His arm burned with pain. The pipe clattered to the ground. Lyra screamed, crawling toward him. But the curse burned her back, forcing her down. She sobbed, her body shaking. "No, no, please don't take him too." The hunters closed in, laughter echoing. One raised his chain toward Lyra. "She is ours. Human weakness cannot save her." But Daniel pushed himself up, blood on his lips. His eyes burned with unyielding fire. He grabbed the fallen pipe again, though his hand shook. With a roar, he swung it with all his strength. The pipe crashed against the glowing chain, sparks exploding. For a moment, the chain faltered, dimming. The hunter staggered back, shocked. Daniel stood tall, chest heaving, his voice thundered. "I said she's not yours." The leader snarled, but before he could strike again, something unexpected happened. Lyra's glowing marks shifted. Their light flared brighter, not in pain, but in defiance. She forced herself to her feet, her eyes blazing. She raised her trembling hands, and for the first time, she fought back. A surge of energy burst from her marks, striking the nearest hunter. He screamed, collapsing to the ground, his chain snapping apart. Daniel's eyes widened. "Lyra!" She staggered, almost falling, but her voice was steady. "I am not theirs anymore. Not while you stand with me." The hunters hissed in anger, realizing the bond between them was breaking the curse's hold. They closed in, chains whipping like fire. Daniel stepped forward again. Turd but unbroken, Lyra stood beside him, her small frame shaking but determined. Together, they faced the hunters in the narrow alley, two against many, but stronger than ever. The night was filled with the clash of chains, the roar of defiance, and the spark of something greater than either of them alone. The alley blazed with chaos. Sparks lit the darkness as chains clashed against stone and steel. Daniel swung his bent pipe again and again, each strike fueled not by strength alone but by the fire inside him. Lyra stood close, her glowing marks burning brighter, her small body trembling but refusing to kneel. The hunters pressed harder, their chains cracked like thunder. One coiled around Daniel's leg, pulling him down. He gritted his teeth, smashing at it with the pipe until the metal links snapped. Pain tore through his muscles, but he forced himself up. Lyra's voice rang through the chaos, shaky but fierce. "You cannot have him. You cannot take me." Her marks pulsed, glowing red now instead of blue. For the first time, the curse bent to her will. The leader hissed, his eyes glowing. "Foolish girl, your fire will burn you alive." He whipped his chain forward, wrapping it around her wrist. Lyra screamed as sparks seared her skin. The glowing marks writhed angrily, feeding the curse. Daniel lunged, grabbing the chain with his bare hand. Fire exploded across his palm, burning deep into his flesh. The pain was unbearable, but he held on. His roar echoed down the alley. "Let her go." The chain fought like a living serpent, trying to coil around his arm. But Daniel pulled harder, muscles straining. His skin blistered, smoke rising. He refused to release it. Lyra's eyes widened, tears streaking down her cheeks. "Daniel, stop. It will kill you." He shook his head, voice rough. "Then it kills me, but not you." The glowing curse on her back flared, twisting wildly as if torn between master and protector. Lyra collapsed to her knees, clutching her chest. Her marks burned like fire, but she reached out with trembling hands, pressing them again. Against his arm, a shockwave burst from the touch. The chain screamed like a living thing. Its glow dimmed, cracking with sparks. The leader stumbled back, his snarl turning into rage. "Impossible. No human can bear the curse." Daniel growled, gripping tighter. His voice thundered. "Then I'm not just human. I'm stronger than your chains." With one final pull, the chain shattered into pieces, exploding in sparks of light. Daniel staggered back, his arm blistered and bleeding, smoke rising from his skin. He nearly collapsed, but Lyra caught him, her small arms straining. Her glowing marks flickered wildly, then dimmed, almost fading. She gasped, "You took it. You took part of the curse into yourself. Daniel's vision blurred, but he forced a weak smile. Better me than you. The hunters howled in fury. Two charged forward, their chains snapping. Lyra's eyes blazed with sudden strength. She spread her arms, her marks bursting with red fire. A wave of energy erupted from her back, striking the hunters down. Their chains burned to ash, their bodies thrown against the walls. The alley fell into silence for a moment. Only the crackle of fire and the sound of Daniel's ragged breathing remained. Lyra looked down at him, her eyes wide with fear and awe. You shared my chains, she whispered, her voice breaking. No one has ever done that. No one dared. Daniel tried to stand, his legs trembling. I told you, you're not alone anymore. The leader of the hunters snarled, his armor cracked, his chain broken, his voice roared with fury. You think this is victory? You think one human can stand against the masters? This is only the beginning. He fled into the shadows, his threats echoing in the night. The remaining hunters limped away, broken but alive. Lyra helped Daniel lean against the wall, her hands shaking as she touched his burned arm. Tears slid down her cheeks. Why? Did you do it? Why suffer their fire for me? Daniel's answer was simple, his voice rough but steady. Because your freedom is worth my pain. Her breath caught. Her glowing marks flickered once more, but this time they pulsed softly, like a heartbeat. Her voice cracked. Then, I swear, I will never leave you, not until my last breath. The night wind whispered through the alley, carrying away the smoke. Together they stood in the ruins of the fight, their bonds sealed not by chains, but by fire and sacrifice. But in the distance, horns echoed across the city. The masters had learned of the battle, and now something far greater was coming. The alley was quiet now, broken only by Daniel's heavy breaths and the faint hum of Lyra's glowing marks. Smoke still rose from his burned arm, his skin blistered, yet he refused to let her see his pain. Lyra knelt beside him, her hands trembling as she touched the wounds gently. You should not have done that. The curse is poison. It seeps into flesh and soul. It could kill you. Daniel gave a weak smile, his voice rough but steady. Better me than you. Her eyes shimmered with tears, glowing faintly in the dark. She shook her head. Why do you keep saying that? You barely know me. Why risk your life for mine? Daniel looked at her, his gaze firm. Because you deserve freedom. Because no one should live in chains. Lyra's breath caught. Her hands shook as she pulled back the fabric of his shirt slightly. Her eyes widened. On his back, glowing faintly through his skin, were strange marks, symbols like hers. They pulsed with soft light, weaker than hers but alive. Her lips parted in shock. The curse. It has touched you, Daniel. You carry part of it now. Daniel's chest rose and fell slowly, his voice calm. Then I'll carry it, if that means you're not alone anymore. Lyra covered her mouth, a sob escaping. She had seen countless slaves break under the curse, but never had she seen anyone willingly take it. Her voice broke. You don't understand what this means. If the curse spreads, it will bind you. 2. You may never be free again. Daniel's eyes never wavered. Then I choose that fate, as long as it means you live free. Her tears spilled over, glowing as they fell onto the ground. She leaned forward, pressing her forehead against his chest. Her voice whispered, no one has ever chosen me. No one has ever fought for me, until you. For the first time, the burning marks on her back dimmed to almost nothing. The pain eased, replaced by warmth, as if the curse itself weakened in the face of her bond with him. Daniel reached out, his burned hand resting gently on her shoulder. Lyra, listen to me. You are not their slave anymore. You are free, as long as I stand. Her body shook with quiet sobs, but her heart stirred with something she thought was long dead, hope. The night air grew colder, but the silence did not last. From the distance came the sound of horns, loud and harsh, echoing across the settlement. Lyra's body tensed, her marks flickered again. They know, she whispered, fear in her voice. The masters know what happened. They will come for us, not just hunters this time, but soldiers. Daniel clenched his jaw, his strength returning despite his wounds. Then we run, we find a place they can't reach. Lyra shook her head, her voice heavy. There is no place safe from them, not in this world. They own every shadow, every market, every chain. Daniel lifted her chin gently, forcing her to meet his eyes, his voice steady. Then we make our own place, one they cannot touch, one where no chain can reach. Lyra's lips trembled. She searched his eyes, finding no fear, only determination. Her voice cracked. You speak as if it is so simple. Daniel's smile was faint but real. Freedom is never simple, but it's worth fighting for. Her heart pounded. She pressed her hand to his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart. Her voice was soft, almost a vow. Then I will fight too, not as a slave, but as yours. The glow of her marks softened, no longer screaming with pain, but pulsing in rhythm with his. Daniel helped her to her feet, his burned arm trembling but strong. Together they stepped out of the ruined alley, the city's towers rising before them, horns echoing across the night. The mark of freedom was now on both of them, and neither would walk alone again. But as they moved into the darkness, a shadow watched from the rooftops, a messenger of the masters, carrying word of the human who dared to defy chains, and the true storm was yet to come. The stars blinked above the alien city as Daniel and Lyra walked through the shadows. They moved like ghosts, silent and careful, each step farther from chains and closer to something neither dared name aloud. Daniel's arm was still wrapped in torn cloth, the skin beneath scorched from the cursed chain. But he didn't complain. His eyes stayed on Lyra, who now walked beside him, not behind him, not beneath him, but as an equal. They found shelter in the ruins of an old structure near the riverbed, a broken roof, cracked stone, but it was theirs. For the first time, Lyra did not flinch at being alone with someone. She sat beside Daniel, her knees drawn up, her glowing marks faint and soft. She spoke first, her voice quiet. When I was a child, I used to dream of escaping the palace. I would sneak outside at night, stare at the stars, and imagine someone coming to take me away. Daniel smiled gently. Someone like a prince? Lyra chuckled, a soft sound that surprised even her. No, not a prince. Just someone who didn't look at me like property. Daniel was quiet for a moment, then said, "Do you remember the first thing you said to me?" Her face flushed with shame. Yes, I hated those words the moment they left my mouth. He looked at her carefully, but I didn't. Not because of the words, but because I saw something behind them, something afraid and brave at the same time. Lyra's eyes filled with emotion. She turned to him, whispering, "I was told that if I ever resisted, the curse would burn me until I forgot my name. But you made me remember who I was." She reached out and took his hand, her fingers warm against his burned skin. The contact sent a wave of strange comfort through them both. Daniel's voice dropped to a murmur. "You saved me too, you know. Before I met you, I was just passing through life, working, sleeping, empty. But the night you called out to me, everything changed." Lyra looked at him, her voice trembling. "Daniel, I'm afraid." "Of what?" he asked gently. She took a breath. "Not of the masters, not anymore. I'm afraid of what I feel. I was never meant to love. I was trained to obey, to serve, not to feel." Daniel leaned in, brushing her hair gently behind her ear. "Then feel with me, not as a slave, not as something broken, but as someone whole." She gasped softly, eyes wide. Then slowly, she reached behind her neck and unclasped the collar she still wore. It had long since stopped glowing, but its weight had never left her mind. She held it out in both hands. "Take this and break it, please." Daniel took the collar, held it tight, and slammed it against the stone wall. It cracked, then snapped into two pieces. The sound echoed through the ruins like thunder. Lyra fell into his arms, tears falling silently. "That was the last piece of my chains." Daniel held her close. "Not chains anymore," he whispered, "only choice." She pulled back just enough to look him in the eyes. Her voice shook. "Then let me choose, Daniel. I choose to belong to no one, but to walk with you, not as your slave, but as your mate." Daniel's heart pounded. "You mean?" Lyra nodded, her smile trembling. "If I am ever to be owned again, let it be by love, not force. I want to be your bride." The stars shimmered above as their hands joined, not in bondage but in promise. But deep within the city, a horn of war rang out louder than before. The masters had arrived, and they were not coming to reclaim a slave. They were coming to destroy a legend. The city shook as the war horns cried again, loud and angry. The masters had returned, and this time, they came with soldiers, ships, and fire. Daniel stood at the edge of the broken rooftop, watching the skies darken with their arrival. Lyra stood beside him, her marks glowing softly under the moonlight. Her face was calm, but her hands were clenched. "They're coming for me," she whispered. "But they won't stop with just me. They will take anyone who helped me, including you." Daniel turned to her, his voice steady. "Then let them come. I'm not afraid anymore." Lyra looked into his eyes, and something inside her shifted. She was no longer the trembling girl who had begged from shadows. She had stood against her curse, broken her chains, and now she stood with her heart open. "We don't have to stay," she said. "There are paths in the outer lands, forgotten places beyond their reach. If we run tonight, we could escape." Daniel shook his head slowly. "If we run, they'll just keep chasing. They'll find others like you and chain them again. But if we stand here, if we fight, maybe we give hope to others." Lyra swallowed hard. "You're not a soldier, Daniel. You're just a man with burned hands and a stubborn heart." He smiled faintly. "Then that will have to be enough." The streets below filled with armored figures, glowing staffs in hand. Their voices boomed through the dark. "Return the cursed girl, or we burn the city down." Daniel stepped forward, standing at the broken edge. His voice echoed loud and clear. "She is not cursed anymore. She is free, and if you want her, you'll have to take me too." Gasps rose from the crowd. Civilians peeked from behind doors, whispers spreading like wind. "The human stands. The slave is free." He took her chains and made them burn. The soldiers hesitated. The masters had expected fear, not fire. Lyra stepped forward. "Be," sighed. "Daniel." She raised her hand high, and her glowing marks flared like sunrise. Her voice rang like a bell. "I am no longer your property. I am not your curse. I am not your shame." She turned to Daniel, her eyes soft. "You said love was stronger than chains." "I still believe it," he said. "Then seal it," she whispered. "Not with fear, but with fire." Daniel took her hand, and together they lifted their joined palms to the sky. A wave of red light burst from their bond, a shock wave of energy that rushed through the city. The curse marks on her back peeled away like ash, and the marks on Daniel's arms shimmered gold, not red. The crowd gasped. The soldiers stepped back, uncertain. The leader of the masters snarled, stepping forward. "No magic breaks our will. This is an illusion." Daniel didn't speak. He simply stepped forward and showed the burn on his hand. It had become something new, an ancient symbol of freedom. Lyra looked at the crowd, her voice calm but powerful. "If they can brand us, then we can burn back. If they chain one of us, we rise together." The people began to murmur. Then someone stepped forward, a young alien girl with scars on her arms. She raised her hand beside Lyra's. "I will not kneel again." One by one, more followed. The streets filled with those once silenced, now standing. The masters, outnumbered not by weapons but by will, retreated slowly. Their power shattered not by war, but by the bond they thought was weakness. Daniel turned to Lyra, his voice soft. "What happens now?" She smiled through tears. "Now we build a world where no one says, 'I belong to you,' unless they mean it with love." He pulled her close, holding her tightly as the city glowed with new light. She whispered against his chest, "I was a slave when I met you, but now I am yours, by choice, forever." And in that moment, two souls stood free, bound not by Haynes but by a vow forged in fire.